All right, so I got a question from John H. Basically, it sounds like John is considering not allowing pets in his rentals. He doesn't feel it's worth the risk. He wants my opinions on it. I disagree. So the numbers disagree. So, John, I don't think every owner that we work with, my property management company, I don't think they understand. They don't seem to be as aware of vacancy as being a major expense as much as we at the property management company do. So it's our job to know numbers. I don't think every owner understands that. At my property management company, we call it a vacancy penalty fee, a per day vacancy penalty fee. So if the rent was $1,000, we would divide that $1,000 by 30 days in a month, and that would get you your per day vacancy penalty fee. Now, the medium rental price that we rent at my property management company, Grow Property Management, it's costing our owners $78. So $78 for every day that we have a property vacant. So it's paramount to our owners that we actually find tenants ASAP. And the numbers, when you actually look at it, so from the statistics I've come across, 67.5% of all potential tenants either have a pet or are planning on getting a pet. So 67.5, that's a huge section of the market. So if you're seeking a tenant, you're losing well over half of the potential tenants, and, not accepting pets, that basically translates to a 40% increase in your vacancy rate. Again, let's go back to the medium, rental price of what Grow Property Management, is getting for a rental that's costing an owner $78 a day. So we don't want to increase that by 40%. That number just doesn't add up. You're talking about 34, percent days vacant longer. Times that by 78, and it gets to be substantial. And the reality is the value of, I think, my podcast. When I stop and think about what value am I actually giving people with this podcast, is I think the reality is that, we're just high volume. So you might own one rental, you might own 10, you might own 20, but Grow Property Management is managing, countless properties, across the city of Philadelphia. And so we actually have our numbers. So since we are coming across, let's just say we're just coming across 100 properties, then I should be able to tell you that one out of every 100 property will experience this type of event. One out of every 100 properties will see significant pet damage. And to be honest, pet damage is extremely rare. And I don't think owners understand damage to a property the way a property management company might see damage to a property. So when a tenant moves in, we give them property in tenant ready condition. If the owner has never had a tenant before, that's sometimes if they're going to have to make improvements, it's going to be an owner expense. But once the tenants are living in a property and we have their security deposit and they move out, often if there's any damage, it's coming out of the tenant security deposit. So it's not an owner expense. It's going to be the tenant's expense. So, when we actually see things such as, what would be a common pet damage thing that we might see, and it's extremely rare, would be where a dog will kind of gnaw on some trim, something of that nature. You go in and you're like, oh my God, this dog just destroyed my trim. It's like, at the end of the day, it's really not a $500 problem. And if security deposit is $2,100, then we certainly have enough money to fix the trim, to replace the trim completely, to make that problem go away. So if there is enough security deposit, as is my experience that there has always been enough security deposit, and the rare times we ever see pet damage, it's incredibly rare. The few times that we may have seen it, there's been more than enough security deposit. I mean, I once had these 3 roommates where the one roommate took the bedroom window out to get her box spring out of the unit. And when she tried to have it replaced up this 3rd story, she broke the window. Those tenants, we had to replace the window when they moved out. We had to charge the deposit. They still got something like $300 back. And it was like a $2,000 rental, So you go there and this is catastrophic damage. And you're like, oh my God, they destroyed my window. There's a whole gaping hole in my property. From an owner perspective, that's an oh my God moment. From our perspective, we're like silly tenants. And now we have to charge you. And we charge them fully. We charge them the full cost of replacing this window. We also charge all the other damage that these tenants cause, primarily the same tenant, actually for the 3 tenants, caused significant damage at the end of the day, I remember them getting over $300 back in security deposits, because by the time we actually replace that window, put a brand new window in, it really doesn't come to that much. The same thing with pet damage. It's just not what you see in 1,000 properties. I would have to guess you're probably going to see pet damage in probably, and again, I don't have these numbers, so I apologize. I would say maybe 3 properties, really. And it would be maybe 1 out of 1,000 properties is going to have damage that exceeds, I can't even imagine, to be honest, but I mean, let's just say $3,000, I mean, and that's, when you're actually looking at the vacancy and looking at those numbers at $78 a day, it's definitely well worth the risk. So personally, I recommend to our owners and to any landlords out there, accept pets. It's not going to be as significant of a problem as you think it is. All right. As always, just a humble Philadelphia property management company owner doing my best to answer your real estate investing questions. As always, happy real estate investing.